So let's move on to our next and final presenter, which is Pointerra. The ASX code is 3DP. Pointerra 3D is a true end-to-end solution that stores, processes, manages, analyzes, extracts, visualizes, and shares the key insights from massive 3D data at a new level of speed, smarts, and scale. Presenting for the company today, we have CEO and co-founder Ian Olson. Ian, welcome, and please take it away, sir.
Thanks, Manny. Great to be here. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. And what a great story Drone Shield is. We've been following them for some time, and indeed, I look forward to a time when our financials and reported revenues match what they're putting out, which is just fantastic. Interestingly, before this started, we were having a quick chat, and Oleg mentioned in his presentation that they deal with drones that are used for nefarious purposes. And I'd like to think that our customers, many of whom use drones, and when I think about the sort of data that we ingest, whether it's 2D or 3D, a significant chunk of it comes from aerial capture. Obviously, that includes fixed wing and helicopters, but increasingly drones. And I'd like to think that our customers are doing, aren't going to be on the receiving end of a Drone Shield outcome. But if we could jump forward to the next slide, and I'll get into our presentation. When we first started talking about our business, and as you mentioned in that introduction, Manny, we talked about 3D data and doing it really quickly, and that's sort of matured in the last few years with this phrase around digital twins, and so what we like to say now is that we build digital twins for our customers, and a lot of Manny's conversation was around drones being in the air for reconnaissance. What a lot of our customers, or most of our customers, do is they would fly a drone and then land it, and then the data sets that would come off that drone, a combination of imagery and lidar, that then needs to be interpreted, not with a set of eyes, but with desktop software. And so our business exists to shrink that workflow and take that desktop software out of the equation, so that anyone, regardless of capture modality, so aerial, mobile, terrestrial, can do their capture, and which is not straightforward and is complex and expensive. But the bigger problem, and the reason we exist, is that the desktop processing workflow is tedious, it's error prone, it takes a lot of time, and it costs a lot of money. And of course, if you're flying an aerial capture or a mobile capture program, which might take a few days or a few weeks, to then wait months and months, and in some case a year, to get the answer from the data, you don't need to know too much about the space to figure that the efficacy of that data starts to fall off a cliff. So again, we exist to help our customers interpret that data, build what we call a digital twin, which is a combination of 3D data, 2D data, and digital design drawings, etc., so that they can better manage the physical world. Most of our customers, and I'll come to the sectors a bit later, are using remote sensing data, again 2D and 3D, to better manage the thing they care about, the asset that they own and operate. And in the case of the mapping companies that are customers, and the engineering firms that are customers, the assets that they're designing, building, and maintaining for their asset owner customers. So a really simple business in terms of what we do, which is shrinking workflow, but what sits behind that is some incredibly advanced, initially human analytics that we developed in the first 3 or 4 years of our existence, and now with the amount of data we've got, which is measured in the petabytes, and is probably the world's largest repository of multi-client data, we've been able to set neural networks loose on that data and help our analytics get faster and smarter. And I guess that's the reason why we like to express our solution in this circular manner. In that we're getting faster and faster and more accurate as more customers throw more data at us and say, "Hey, I need to extract this from my data. Can you tell me this?" And particularly with aerial capture, but increasingly with mobile, the big question we're answering is change. If you're tasked with managing, owning, and operating the physical world, whether it's a road corridor, a rail corridor, an electric utility network, an iron ore mine or an oil and gas facility, you're what you care about a few things, but principally you care about change, because change leads to maintenance and sustaining capex requirements. And the holy grail of our space is to get to the point where we're helping our customers do predictives. So you've got enough data over enough intervals to enable you to predict a degradation in the condition of the asset, which ultimately leads to failure, so that you can get out in front of that. And the big ROI we deliver for our customers, apart from getting the answer quicker, which allows them to better manage their physical world, is to be able to help them get out in front of their repairs and maintenance OPEX and their sustaining CAPEX. And if you can help a customer do that faster, then the ROI you're delivering is magnified, many orders of magnitude. Next slide, please. So we've taken our platform that we developed starting back in 2016-17, and we had first customers and first revenue in 2017, 2018, and we've built that into a stack. And initially, if we were having this presentation 3, 4, 5 years ago, we were really only talking about Pointerra 3D Core, which leveraged the cloud at a time when, from as early as 2015, 2016, we're an AWS deployed and AWS certified partner. We've been with AWS since the get-go. And really our platform was initially about getting organizations to get all their data, which was living in hard drives under desks and living in enterprise servers, into a place, not just storing it in the cloud for the sake of storing it, but putting it in the cloud so that the customer could then access it, interpret it on demand, and importantly share and leverage that data across the enterprise. We conceived a SaaS business model that didn't really exist at the time, and to some extent still doesn't. People talk to us about our competitors, and our biggest competitor, apart from desktop software, which is what we call the old way of doing things, is human behavior. So the adoption of Pointerra Core, and then the deeper integration into the workflow of a customer, where we start to help them, what we call cloudify the questions they're asking in the data, and turn that into our analytics stack, and then ultimately pull that together once we've got a complete digital twin of their asset and a real understanding of the things they care about as new data is thrown at the platform, is to start to throw the business intelligence at them, which we call Pointerra 3D Answers. So that's where you get into predictives. It's where you start to focus on risk and system-wide and asset-wide key performance indicators that help higher ups in an organisation manage the things they care about. And so with some of the mining customers, we're very much focused on risk and compliance, and that extends into oil and gas, and certainly our biggest sector, which is the electric utility sector. So we've got what we like to think is a pretty unique SaaS business model around digital twins. It's predominantly subscription. And we like to sell Pointerra 3D Core into the business, sort of land and expand approach. But sometimes we come into it through the middle level, where we might be helping a customer with a program, and it's actually our analytics stack that's of most appeal initially, because we help them shrink the workflow around interpreting that data. That then that ultimately delivers a bunch of data that they would otherwise store on hard drives, and we throw that into Pointerra 3D Core, and hopefully leave that program or that project with a recurring subscription model. So we've designed the business model so that it's really sticky. The adoption of Pointerra into Pointerra 3D into an organisation does require changes in workflow habits, does require changes in human behaviour. But what we've seen over our journey, some of our customers have been with us for 7 years, and pay us monthly, month in, month out, and so I guess that's, when you're a SaaS business, it's pretty easy to get started, but it's also pretty easy to turn it off. So what we've learned in our journey is we have pretty low churn. We designed a business model that was that didn't involve capture, that focused on the big problem, which is interpreting data. And as a result, as we look out into our revenue projections, we see a really high margin business from a gross profit perspective. And as we get into operational leverage, as our gross profit disconnects from our cost base, we see a really profitable, high margin, high EBITDA margin business out into the future. Next slide, please. So we've the people that I see, there's a lot of names on on the attendee list here, and there's some people that are very familiar to me, who've been long-standing shareholders and have watched our run through the COVID era, and have obviously watched our retrace from a share price perspective in the past couple of years. And what we found as we scaled into the US through 2020 and 2021 was that we became very dependent and very reliant on our biggest customer sector, which is the US energy utility sector, where we've barely penetrated that sector, and perhaps you could argue we were overly exposed to them when in calendar 22 and calendar 23 they backed off some of their programs. And I won't dig too deep into the reasons for that. But again, people that have been following our story will have heard me talk about why the US utilities went on a bit of an aerial capture pause over 22 and 23. We've always been pretty lean. We've operated pretty lean. We're predominantly R&D. We've got circa 25 people in our business. Most of those people are in product and R&D, and we've always been very focused on creating a lean business that could scale, and so that we didn't end up with hundreds and hundreds of people, but ended up with a very profitable, high gross margin, high EBITDA margin business. So that discipline has challenged us in the last year or so, where we've actually seen our revenues fall back. One of the themes of this presentation today is talking about setting the stage for FY25 and beyond, and why we believe the challenges of the past couple of years are well and truly behind us. But key to our business, given that we are an IP business, is our people, and that remains our biggest challenge, is identifying the right people, particularly at the front end of the business, the sales end, who are able to effectively tell our story and sell our platform into the different sectors. Next slide, please. So those sectors, when we started the business, we were very much focused on survey and mapping and AEC. And given that it's those sectors that tend to do a lot of the data generation and data origination, increasingly because of the use of drones and some of the advancements and the ease of use of different capture hardware, we find that the asset owners who use digital twins to manage their physical world across those four sectors that we focus on are starting to do a lot of capture themselves. And indeed, when we started our business, we kind of thought we'd end up with thousands and thousands of very small customers in that survey, mapping, and AEC space, which is very globally disaggregated. What we've learned over the journey, particularly with our early wins in the US energy utility sector, is that the asset owners, whilst they're using survey and mapping and AEC contractors to help them, are spending significant amounts of money on acquiring remote sensing data to better manage the thing they care about. And some of our energy utility customers in the US spend well north of 10 million US per annum, year in, year out, acquiring remote sensing data. And they do that not because they want a pile of data, but because they want to know more about about their asset and the condition of their asset. So if you've got a road or a rail network or an energy or water network spread across many tens of thousands of square miles, and you need to ensure that's operating and safely and effectively, and you're meeting all your not just financial and operational, but your community, your social license to operate, your governance and safety standards, you need to regularly understand the condition of the asset. And the best way to do that is using remote sensing data, from satellites down to handhelds and everything in between. And of course, as I've said a few times in this presentation, and to anyone who's cared to listen over our journey, capturing the data is not easy, but it's a lot more straightforward compared to interpreting the data. And if you can shorten the time frame it takes to interpret that data and get more accurate and do it more cost effectively, then you're delivering a big win to your customers. And that's why we've seen, particularly out of the energy utility sector, a year in, year out, we're getting repeat orders and repeat uplifts and recommitments from certainly our biggest customer in the US of seven-figure programs that they're operating year in, year out. And I'll just jump to the next slide now if we can. Thanks. Yeah, so we talked on the previous slide about our different sectors, but really the growth that we're experiencing into FY25 and beyond is driven by these key sections in this slide, and that is that the global geospatial sector I guess the engine room of the generation of hardware and the proliferation of hardware, a bit like the automobile industry. Each year there's a newer, faster, cheaper, better piece of kit. And we purposely stayed away from the capture space because that's a very high capex space. And we focus instead on the bigger issue, which is the workflow around interpreting and analysing data. Because of the continued innovation in the geospatial hardware sector, there's just been a not quite vertical but significant ramp in the generation of data and the ability to and the requirement to analyse and interpret it across the different sectors. So you've got this tailwind of innovation driving the availability of data and the cost of acquisition. You've then got the need for the asset owners to drive cost out of their business, and they do that by innovation. And then you throw on top of that, certainly in the US, and we've experienced it over the last few years here in Australia, a further structural tailwind, which is government-sponsored civil infrastructure expenditure. And in the US, that's getting up near $1 trillion, and a lot of that money is going into road, rail, power, and water. And for us, it's, having started operation in the US in 2018, it's a great place to be. We announced a couple of weeks ago that we've been awarded a contract by the US Department of Energy, and really that's around us showcasing for a handful of electric utilities in the northeast of the country that our platform can solve some of their challenges around managing their networks, and having that solution, which is existing. It's not something we need to develop. It's a solution that we've already sold into other utilities in Australia and the US. But the objective of that program, sponsored by the Department of Energy, is to have the outcomes of the deployment of our solution with those utilities validated by some independent university academics, and then produce a blueprint for what the Department of Energy hopes will be best practice in the US. So for us, again, if people familiar with our story would have heard me talk about the Holy Grail in that very narrow sector of our business, which is the US energy utility sector. The Holy Grail is for us to be considered a standard and even a mandated standard by the US Department of Energy. So if you're owning and operating electric utility network and you want to meet your operating and risk and compliance and safety requirements, then you need to be using a platform like Pointerra's. So this program, we hope to wrap it up pretty quickly. It'll certainly be wrapped up during FY25, so we'll see that revenue recognised during that period, and the outcome of that, we hope is a significant increase in exposure to our platform, the endorsement from the universities, from the utilities, and certainly from the US Department of Energy, to help us sell into the other utilities in North America. And we're talking about a total addressable market for Pointerra in excess of $100 million per annum in recurring SaaS revenue. So that's a significant driver for us in that part of the world. The great thing about utilities is that they don't compete. They have discrete service areas, and so they're very collegiate. They love to share what they're doing, and they love to share best practice, and that extends not just across the US, but across the world. Next slide, thanks, as Manny comes back. So we see, the theme for FY25 is a return to growth. I've highlighted the US program, US utility program delays ending. I think that's been evidenced by some of the contract announcements, and indeed the contract announcement from March has already seen a couple of change orders, a couple of uplifts to that initial number, and most of that revenue will come through FY25. One of the things we did last year when we saw how exposed we were to the US energy utility sector, which is great when it's great, but if they have a hiatus, it's not so great, was we diversified a bit geographically and from a sector perspective, and put more effort into resellers and partners, which gives us a lot of leverage without a big cost base into accessing customers and opportunities in different parts of the world. The big, off a low base, we see a significant emergence in FY25 and beyond in mining, oil and gas, as those organisations look to drive cost out of their business and ensure they meet their social licence to operate and their risk and other governance requirements with a platform like ours. And without getting as granular in the sales pipeline as Oleg did, we certainly see our sales pipeline growing. We see the sales cycle shortening. We see the number of daily active users on the increase, and we're really confident that'll lead to a growth in ARR over time. Final slide, and then I think I'm done. Thanks. So the FY25 outlook. This is all about shareholder value, right? Some of you have been with us since the start of COVID. Share price down around a cent, right up to the highs of 2020, 21, and then the retrace back. We'd like to think that the challenges that have led to that retrace in our market valuation are behind us. And our objective is to demonstrate the ability to be profitable, to actually be profitable, but importantly to continue to throw cost at the business so that we can scale it. And we look forward to FY25, 26 and beyond, and delivering enhanced returns to shareholders, particularly those of you who've been with us for some time. So I think if you're new to the story, it's a great time to get on board, and we look forward to working with people like Share Cafe to keep the market informed about our outlook. Thanks, Manny.
Okay, Ian. Thank you for that. Great. We do have a few questions for you that have come through. So just to finish off the day, let's go with. Now, the first one is the long spoken of Entergy contract.
Yes.
Yeah, Entergy contract awarded in July 2023, and Amazon contract have been subject to some delays. Did you generate revenue from either of these in Q4 2024?
Yeah, I can't talk to that because we haven't put out our Q4 numbers yet. But
that's okay.
But Entergy and Amazon are a very big part of our future. And I can see it there, actually, if I'm allowed to read ahead. The hurricane season is upon us. We're actually helping Entergy right now. They've had Hurricane Beryl come and blow a bit of their network over, and I was on a call this morning, and I've got another one tonight where we're actively helping Entergy with our hurricane response solution, which was developed in conjunction with our largest US customer and has been in operation there for a couple of years now.
Okay, and you can probably see the next question that's come up.
Yes.
How is poll analysis work and subsequent revenue with Entergy progressing?
Yes.
Indicated up to 4 million polls could be inspected over a 10-year period.
That's it. Correct. So last year, Entergy, a customer of ours since 2022, announced they were one of the first big utilities to announce a multi-year resilience program. Resilience program, pole hardening, basically means they're going to go and inspect every single pole in their network. That number's some 4 million. Think 4 million wooden poles spread across a couple of states, Texas and Alabama. And the objective there is to figure out the condition of them and then make them stronger, more resilient, or if they're that decrepit, then replace them. Now, the only way to do that, and the funding, the federal funding that's helping them do that, which is measured in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That program is about a $10 billion US program. It'll take them all of 10 years. They're 1 year into it. And that's really been the planning phase for them. Our involvement's is part of that planning, but really the rubber really hits the road for us when they start to acquire data that enables us to help them risk assess the entire network systematically over probably a 3 to 4 year period, and that will be that'll be really lucrative for our company and sadly for Entergy and the residents of that region. Beryl came along and has sort of has probably brought forward something that we thought was going to take a bit longer to develop. So we're expecting FY25 to see revenue from that opportunity that we announced last July or August.
Okay, great. And I might just do one more as we are running out of time. And again, I will stress to everybody, any questions that haven't been answered, we will pass them on to Ian for him to answer separately, so long as you put your details on the on your profile there. So last one, Ian, do you have any market penetration in Europe?
Yeah, we do. We've got customers in Europe. Most of them are in the engineering and in the AC space and in the mapping space. We've got some prospects that are onboarding, some oil and gas prospects that are onboarding at the moment, and some road, rail, and electric utility prospects that are onboarding. When we say onboarding, we're working through understanding the opportunity, giving them access to a trial account, and trying to move that to a paid customer. And we're doing that principally through our US and Australian based sales staff, but we're also increasingly using resellers in those regions.
Okay, Ian. Well, thank you for that. That was fantastic. And
Pleasure, Manny.
I think that's all we've got time for today. So, Ian, thank you again. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we get you back soon with some more exciting results and news.
Look forward to it and appreciate the opportunity. And we'll be sure to answer the questions that I didn't get to. So thank you.